It's HPR, All Things Considered, and I'm Dave Lawrence with our latest road stories. Find them all at hawaiipublicradio.org/road stories, along with links to the podcast. And we're welcoming back a band with strong Hawaii ties again, the Doobie Brothers, playing the Mac Tuesday and Waikiki Shell next week on Friday. And while you may know guitarist Pat Simmons is a longtime Maui resident, another sometime presence on the Valley Isle is Michael McDonald. Big Mike, aloha and mahalo, my brother, and welcome back.
Thanks, Dave. And thank you. It's going to be great to get back.
And because of Pat's association with Hawaii, he's told us about David Guest, the late publicist, and some of the cool things that he did. One of them you were really a part of. Two-part episode on television. What's Happening, it's called.
Well, I think for us, we had this crazy publicist, David Guest, and he would come up with these wacky ideas. For some reason, he formulated this idea and said that we should be on What's Happening. Of course, we've thought to ourselves, what self-respectable rock band would go on a TV comedy episodic series? No matter how much we enjoyed it, that was like a taboo thing, like doing commercials. And we just kind of dove in with both feet thinking, well, you know, it's so wacky, it kind of sounds like fun. And we had a great time with the cast and this episodic story.
Bootlegging.
Yeah.
Were they impressed, though, to meet you guys?
Yeah, we had fun with the older kids, on the show. But Dee wasn't too impressed. I don't think she knew who we were.
One time Pat said he was running down a whole list of stuff, times that some of David's friends would show up at your rehearsals, your concerts, and elsewhere. And he seemed to remember Michael Jackson. And other Jacksons even.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. He used to show up at my house in the Valley with Michael.
One of the most talented dudes.
Well, one time they invited us up on stage at one of their concerts in San Francisco. And we did some events for David with the Jacksons. It was always fun. It was a great family. Yeah, David was, he was a character. He was one of those friends that you didn't know whether to suffocate him or hang out with him.
Yeah. What show you guys got up on stage with the Jacksons?
Jackson 5. They were performing at Cow Palace. We came out on stage, and they were doing steps and stuff, and we're standing there like a bunch of bumps on the log in the background.
Tell us the story. He brings him to your house?
Oh, yeah. Well, you got to know this guy, David. He came in, and the first thing he's bragging about making Michael get out and put gas in his car. And he's laughing, and he goes, "Can you believe he did it?" He goes, "I made him get out and put the gas in my car." And and Michael's just kind of a carefree kid. He's not particularly interested in this conversation one way or the other. And I was kind of surprised to see Michael Jackson walk in my house. Believe me, but I'm sitting there just, I just made him put gas in my car. The gas station, I couldn't believe it. And so it winds up, we were talking for a while. My sister, Maureen, was there, and I guess Janet was probably about 10 years old then, Janet Jackson.
Right.
So my sister winds up babysitting Janet a couple times, because David referred her to Michael. The family was out or something. My sister, to her credit, she was Janet Jackson's babysitter. We just kind of, happened to know those guys through David.
So it's just you, Michael, and your sister. How many people are there when David brings him over?
It was just the four of us, and David came by to show off Michael, that he was out running around with Michael Jackson, I guess. But he was just such a pleasant guy. It was fun to meet him and talk to him. And you kind of had to know David. Everything with David was all for shock value. I was just kind of sitting there going, I can't believe I'm sitting in my house talking to Michael Jackson.
How long was he there for?
I think they were there for an hour or more. Just kind of.
Can you imagine?
They obviously had nowhere to go.
Killing time at Michael McDonald's place. And you're just like, well, maybe I can show you my Motown record collection. Pat told us also about the time that he was at the club in Chicago and they were seeing Al Green in concert. And David, all of a sudden, Al made Pat get up on stage impromptu and play with him.
Yeah, David used to like to do that to us. Al was one of David's clients, too. He drugged me to Al's church when it opened in Memphis.
Oh, you've got an Al story, too.
Yeah, Al was a pastor of a church in Memphis. David was friends with Willie Mitchell and his wife. Willie's wife wasn't particularly fond of David, but they were friends. So he had dinner at Willie's house the night before in Memphis, and he wanted me to go with him. And, something told me, I don't want to be in a social situation with David, with people I don't really know, because he's going to embarrass me. He's going to start shtick, you know. And so I just begged off. I said, no, I'm going to stay in tonight. And so he went there, and apparently he did make a big scene. Willie, you know, David, like we all know David, like Pat knows David. We were used to him, you know, and we didn't really think of it one way or the other. But to people that didn't know him, he could be really obnoxious. You know?
Right, sounds it.
There was this other pastor, or their pastor and his wife were having dinner. It was just a small dinner party. It was Willie and his wife and the pastor and their wife. And so the pastor's wife is talking to David. And she goes, so what do you do, David? He goes, well, I'm a pastor also. Willie's wife is looking at David like, don't you dare. And she was not happy with him, you know. And he just starts going into this shtick. He goes, yes, I have my own congregation. She goes, oh, what's the name of your church? And he makes up some ridiculous name, you know. And apparently Willie's wife just lost it. And screamed out, you know, he's not a you know, using a few expletives. And David thinks this is hysterical. And Willie, of course, is trying to do damage control at this point because his wife's about to kill David Guess. You know? I was never so glad I didn't go somewhere. But anyway, the next morning we went to see Al's church, and he makes Al get me up there to sing. I don't know any gospel songs very well. All of a sudden, Al, my brother Mike McDonald said he's going to come up and sing a song. And I'm like, what? So he says, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I guess People Get Ready. Do you know People Get Ready? So the band kind of knew People Get Ready, and I sang People Get Ready. Only to realize that that was the song Al was going to sing that day for the opening of his church.
Oh.
So, you know, this is, again, one of those moments with David that you're lucky to get out alive.
You got some good ones, Mike.
You know, he was a fun guy. He was married to Liza Minnelli in the end.
Right. And a Hawaii resident, too, we should add.
That's right. He was. You're right. But, you know, all his parties were always great. I mean, he'd be sitting there at the table, and he'd have these actresses and actresses. You were amazed they were still alive, you know, and they were, like, huge in the 30s and 40s, you know. I'll never forget, I was sitting at one of those dinners, and all of a sudden they're carrying Betty Davis out of the room. I thought she had died, you know, right there in the room, you know. Apparently she just passed out at the table. And then she came back in and made a big entrance when she came back in, just like old Hollywood, you know. Everybody clapped, you know. But there was always like all these people, Cesar Romero, Red Buttons. I mean, you couldn't believe the people he knew, you know. It was crazy.
We could be milking you all day. Your stuff is gem upon gem over here. You're like a jewelry store dealer with all of your...
Yeah, get me while I still remember it.
Well, this David Guest stuff I've always thought is a mountain of good material.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. And like I say, at those parties, we got to perform with all kinds of people. Dionne Warwick, playing these songs that I ever in my life think I'd be doing Walk On By with Dionne Warwick, or, you know... I'll be forever grateful to David for that, you know. One thing about David, if you got invited to his party, he was going to work you. When I got invited to his wedding, I was working. Everybody had to play, and I was one of the groomsmen, and that was a nightmare. One of those great Hollywood stories, you know. Just the wedding was postponed for like hours because his best man was Michael Jackson. The maid of honor was Liz Taylor.
Wow.
And they found out that David had made some deal to sell all the photos for like over $1 million to People magazine. And so they decided, you know, not without us getting some of that. So they had their lawyers come down, and they had a 2-hour meeting while the rest of us were all sitting around, you know, twiddling our thumbs. I said to Tito, I said, any idea what's going on? Or is the wedding going to happen? He goes, yeah, as soon as they figure out how they're going to split up the money from People magazine. So, you know, it was one of those kind of crazy Hollywood deals, you know.
And Michael, he sang, though, with you guys?
Well, Michael did.
Let's go out with one of the tunes that you guys would do with Michael. What's one you remember looking over at him going, I can't believe I'm playing blah, blah, blah with Michael Jackson?
I do know one that he sang. It was Listen to the Music. All the Jacksons sang on Listen to the Music with us when we did a a fundraiser at the Shriners Club in L.A. We have the Jacksons on the stage with us, Kenny Loggins and the Jackson 5 singing and listening to the music.
It has to put a smile on your face to remember that, or you've just done too much stuff.
It does, actually, yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks for your time. And I hope to see you when we get there, man. I hope you come down on the show.
Looking forward to it. I hope you had fun today.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Stay safe, Brother Mike.
All right, man. We'll see you soon.
Aloha, dude.
Aloha.